The subcommittee will come to order. The subject of today's hearing is the fiscal year 2026 request for the Stennis Center for Public Service, the Office of Congressional Workplace Rights, and Congressional Office for International Leadership. I'd like to thank Ranking Member Espiat, the committee members, and our agency executive directors for being here this morning. While our smaller agencies do not traditionally testify every budget cycle, we wanted to invite you back to provide an introduction to the work you do and the work you and your teams do for the new members of our subcommittee. The Stennis Center for Public Service, while being the oldest of the three agencies here today, continues to submit a flat funding request for $430,000 for fiscal year 2026. The Office of Congressional Workplace Rights requests $8.6 million, an increase of nearly 5.5%. And finally, the Congressional Office for International Leadership's fiscal year 2026 request is $7.2 million, a 20% increase. I look forward to your testimony, and I now yield to Ranking Member Espiat, Mr. Espiat, for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Chairman Valadeo, Ms. Sargis, Dr. Pugh, and Mr. Crane. Thank you all for testifying today on behalf of your respective agencies. Your agencies continue to play a vital role in advancing workplace rights and providing future leaders with tools, the tools that are required, really, to develop and support democracy across the world. As the first Dominican American to serve in Congress, I understand and continue to be encouraged by the international outreach of COIL to share accountable governance and citizenship diplomacy. Now more than ever, I believe that it is vital to maintain our connection with global partners to exchange best practices. As General Maddox once told the current president, if we don't spend money on countries across the world, we're going to need to buy more bullets. And so we don't want to buy more bullets. We want to make sure that we encourage democracy across the world. And the Stennis Center also has been instrumental in connecting new generations to the public service workplace. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Espiat. Dr. Pugh, your full testimony has been submitted for the record, and you are now recognized to provide a summary of your written testimony.
Good morning, Chairman Valadeo, Ranking Member Espiat, and members of the subcommittee. I am Brian Pugh, the Executive Director of the Stennis Center for Public Service, Training, and Development, and I am honored to speak to you today about the Stennis Center's $430,000 appropriations request that funds our congressional programs. The Stennis Center was established in 1988 with the statutory mission to, 1, promote public service to young people and to get them interested in a career in public service, 2, to provide training and professional development opportunities to state and local elected officials and their staff, and 3, to provide training and professional development opportunities to congressional staff. We are overseen by a We are overseen by a board of trustees that are requested by law to be appointed by House and Senate leadership. Our programs that meet the third prong of our mission are known as our congressional programs. Because the Stennis Center's request is for expenses related to these programs, I will focus on discussing those. The congressional programs consist of the following: the Stennis Congressional Staff Fellows Program, Emerging Leaders Program, and the Stennis Program for Congressional Interns. The Stennis Center is requesting level funding, which is $430,000. The Stennis Center strives to present the highest quality programs for congressional staff at the lowest possible cost. The center has been operating on the same funding level for multiple years now. The appropriations request for FY26 is essential to enable the Stennis Center to continue to provide training and development opportunities to congressional staff as mandated by its authorizing legislation. Without the appropriation, the highly successful congressional programs would be severely reduced, if not eliminated. As I noted, the Stennis Center is requesting level funding. The Stennis Center has been able to keep level funding despite increased costs because of 2 main strategies. The first strategy has been to consistently evaluate ways that we can save money without substantially impacting the quality of the programs. The money saved can then be used in other ways that improve our programs or offset rising costs. One of my proudest cost-saving measures has been our recent move to the Library of Congress. At the beginning of the 25 fiscal year, the Stennis Center moved from a leased space in a private office building to the Adams Building at the Library of Congress. If you factor in the savings from services such as utilities and parking, the total yearly saving is almost $50,000, which is equivalent to 11.5% of our budget request. However, this is not the only benefit to moving to the library. Because it is so much larger than the Stennis Center, the library can potentially provide us with services that would otherwise cost us more if we were to contract out on an ad hoc basis. These conversations are currently ongoing. While our move to the library is the most noteworthy example of cost savings, I would like to provide a couple examples of how we have adjusted our programs to save costs while maintaining their high quality. One example is the cost of food and fresh refreshments for Stennis intern program. While I am a big believer in Southern hospitality and always having food for your guests, we decided in '22 to cut back on food that we provided to the program. This allowed us to go from hosting the Stennis intern program once a year to 3 times a year. Because we utilized event space in the Capitol Visitor Center for this program, we were ultimately able to increase the number of participants 3-fold at no additional cost. Similarly, we were able to cut the cost of event space for the Stennis Fellows Program by moving our roundtables to the Hill Center at the Old Naval Hospital, which is considerably cheaper than other DC options. The cost savings allowed us to expand the number of roundtables from 4 to 6. The second strategy that the Stennis Center has employed to limit programmatic costs is that we have created a system where our programs can build upon themselves without adding costs to the Stennis Center. What this means is in practice is that once someone has gone through our programs, they are much more likely to volunteer their time to give back to us and to the institution of Congress. While this is difficult to quantify into an actual dollar amount, it does mean that we can have expert panelist speakers, seasoned veterans to mentor young staff, and even interns serving on the editorial board of Public Service Review, our journal. Finally, I would like to close by briefly bragging about the congressional programs. Despite the level funding, interest in our program continued to increase. Over the course of 118th Congress, we had 248 individual participants complete their respective programming. Further, the number of applications to our program has increased significantly. As an example, the number of applicants for the 119th Stennis Fellows Program was 122. This is a 27% increase from the number of applications in the 118th Congress, almost a 200% increase from the 10-year average. We believe that these kinds of statistics show the congressional staff value our programs. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you today about the Stennis Center's appropriation request. I look forward to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Pugh, and I now recognize Mr. Crane for his 5 minutes for a summary of his testimony.
Good morning, Chairman Valadeo, Ranking Member Espaillat, and distinguished committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you on behalf of the Office of Congressional Workplace Rights to discuss our budget justification for fiscal year 2026. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the landmark Congressional Accountability Act, which the 104th Congress enacted with virtually unanimous support in 1995. In so doing, Congress promised the American public that it would no longer exempt itself from the workplace, safety, accessibility, and veterans preference laws that it applies to the private sector and the executive branch. To paraphrase a sponsor of the new law, enactment of the Congressional Accountability Act ended, once and for all, the era of it applies to thee, but not to me. Since then, the CAA has served as a model of good government and accountability to the American taxpayer. Congress ensures that its promise of accountability is matched by action through our office, the independent, nonpartisan Office of Congressional Workplace Rights. In carrying out our mission under the CAA, we strive to serve as a steward for government efficiency. With only 34 FTEs, we are one of the smallest offices with a line item in the federal budget, yet the broad range of nearly 20 anti-discrimination, safety, accessibility, and veterans preference laws that we administer in the legislative branch is comparable in scope to that of multiple executive branch agencies, such as the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the Federal Labor Relations Authority, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and multiple components of the Departments of Labor and Justice. The OCWR has executed its mission on an operating budget that is a fraction of that of the smallest of these executive branch agencies. For fiscal year 2026, the OCWR requests funding of $8.6 million, or 5% over the continuing resolution amount for fiscal year 2025. Our request focuses on efficiency and considers only strictly mission-critical line items. It does not propose any new programs, but it would allow the OCWR to perform its continuing statutory mandate at the same levels as it has in past years. This mandate is embodied in the Congressional Accountability Act itself. As required by the CAA, we develop and provide outreach, education, and training to the congressional community on the laws applied through the CAA. We provide confidential advising services for legislative branch employees on CAA rights and responsibilities. We operate an administrative dispute resolution program, which includes administrative hearings and voluntary mediation. Our Office of General Counsel enforces laws governing safety, accessibility, labor relations, and it also inspects more than 18 million square feet of facilities and grounds in the legislative branch to ensure that they are and remain safe and accessible. Our Board of Directors reports to each Congress with recommendations on maintaining parity between the laws that apply to the private sector and the executive branch and those that apply to the legislative branch. We also administer a biennial survey to more than 30,000 legislative branch employees, which assesses the congressional workplace environment and the effectiveness of reforms. More than 80% of our budget request is for personnel costs associated with 34 authorized FTEs, including projected COLA adjustments. We depend on our ability to recruit and retain highly skilled personnel, such as safety inspectors and IT, records, and legal professionals. Our budget request for fiscal year 2026 will allow us to maintain competitive compensation levels. Although we are projecting an increase in personnel costs, our enhanced ability to perform more services in-house that were previously provided by outside contractors and service providers has resulted in a significant decrease in non-personnel costs. We expect this trend to continue. Our fiscal year 2026 budget request will allow the OCWR to succeed while serving as a responsible and efficient steward of taxpayers' money. I therefore ask that you support it and our continued work in executing our crucial mission under the Congressional Accountability Act in the coming fiscal year. Again, thank you for your ongoing and steadfast support.
Thank you, Mr. Crane, and I now recognize Ms. Sargis for her 5-minute summary of her testimony.
Chairman Valadeo, Ranking Member Espaillat, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on behalf of the Congressional Office for International Leadership, or COIL for short. For 25 years, COIL has been offering a proven platform for congressional diplomacy, linking future foreign leaders with you and the communities that you represent. It's a legislative branch tool created by this body to advance American leadership in a uniquely nonpartisan way. I'm honored to be speaking directly to you today to report that COIL and its Open World program does in fact promote national security, strategic congressional diplomacy, and nonpartisan values. We respectfully request a $1.2 million increase to our appropriation for fiscal 26, bringing our total to $7.2 million. We've operated at or below $6 million for the last 12 budget cycles, despite a decade of expanded programming and rising costs. Cost-sharing efforts with local host organizations have reached their maximum. Yet meanwhile, demand from local American hosts themselves continues to exceed our capacity, as we had to turn away nearly 40% of eligible communities this year due to budgetary constraints. So today, I'm not just asking for a 20% increase in our budget. I'm asking you to invest in a program that delivers high value, low cost, and real results for Congress and for America. What would the 20% accomplish? We could strengthen our parliamentary exchanges for one thing, and we could deepen engagement in underrepresented American communities for another. By bringing global leadership into direct contact with over 2,000 American communities, you are supporting local economies while creating international understanding through homestay and grassroots engagement. The program impacts American communities when delegates travel to our cities, staying with host families, engaging with local institutions, and exchanging professional expertise. For every dollar invested, we return value in the form of goodwill, local engagement, and strategic influence. Our operating model uses local hosts, volunteers, and existing civic institutions, making us lean, effective, and bipartisan. But growth has reached the limits of what's possible at our current funding level. We operate a lean and highly effective agency that leverages partnerships with organizations so that we can minimize overhead and maximize reach. Cost pressures continue to rise, as since 2019, cost of living adjustments for salaries are nearing 20%. Benefit rates have risen by more than 7%, and per delegate costs alone have doubled. Grants needed to execute a high-level program now include higher costs for van rentals, drivers, gas, food, and contracted labor. Airfare alone from the Indo-Pacific can be up to 30% higher than from Europe. By working in new strategic regions, though, we also lose the economies of scale that once made it possible to stretch $6 million across a limited number of countries. Every budget request before you is framed as essential. I understand that. But let me tell you why this increase is not just warranted. It's smart, it's timely, and directly aligned with the strategic goals of this Congress. It is a cost-effective, locally rooted, fiscally conservative, and internationally impactful program that many in Congress are also very proud of. At home, civic clubs, universities, and local governments across the country host open world delegations because they believe in a mission that supports Congress. Nearly all of our funding is spent domestically, reinvested in local economies in every state. Do you want to promote American values abroad? We've been doing that for 25 years, quietly, effectively, and with the help of ordinary Americans in every state. With your continued support, we will keep bringing the leaders who believe in democracy because they've seen it right here and often for the first time in your offices. In closing, our mission is simple but powerful: to connect you with the world one leader at a time. Members of this subcommittee, COIL, the agency, is an asset. It's a resource and it's an investment. The Open World program is your program. It was created by you, for you, and our team is small, our mission is focused, and our results are measurable. We respectfully request your support for this $1.2 million increase so that we can meet rising demand, support congressional priorities, and sustain America's voice in the world, from one country to one community at a time. Thank you for your time and for your continued support of congressional diplomacy. I look forward to your questions, and I'd like to say thank you to my staff who are with me today for their extraordinary support and outstanding service to Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sargis. Thank you to our witnesses for testifying before the committee today. For questions, I'll call on members based on the seniority of those present when the hearing was called to order, alternating between majority and minority. Then we'll call on members in order of their arrival. Each will have 5 minutes, and I now recognize myself for those 5 minutes. Dr. Pugh, I want to begin by commending you for your fiscal responsibility and for the creative ways you have been increasing services with such a modest appropriation. Can you share with the committee the impact you feel that this increase in programming will have on the legislative branch?
Thank you, excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that our impact continues to be really important and touch a lot of members, especially the ones that have staff that participate in our programs. It's not just the Stennis Fellows Program, which is our flagship program, which is for the senior level staff, but we also continue to touch the junior level staff as well through our Emerging Leaders Program and our Stennis Program for congressional interns. Yes, like my colleagues mentioned here, costs have went up significantly, but we have just continued to save without touching the quality of the programs. We've done that in a lot of unique ways. Again, one of the biggest moves we made was to the Library of Congress. So that has really helped us quite a bit. And we do have a lot of senior Stennis fellows who go through the program that once they complete the program, they help us with the additional programs. So that's been a large savings for us because staff cost is really expensive, but I am fortunate enough to be able to keep a small staff because I do depend heavily on the senior Stennis fellows that went through the program. So that's the primary cost saver for us.
Well, thank you. Ms. Sargis, last year when you testified before the subcommittee and in several meetings since, we have discussed a greater need for transparency and oversight within your agency to ensure your programming reflects the will of Congress. What changes has your agency implemented over the past year to ensure the appropriate oversight committees are aware of the work you are doing to ensure that your programs are nonpartisan in nature?
Thank you for that question. To begin with, we are having quarterly meetings with one of the committees that was very interested in the work that we do, the Committee on House Administration. We also have regular review periods with the clerks. We keep people apprised of what's going on with our agency. We are taking a fine-tooth comb to the character of our programs, but actually we are ordering them at a top-down level where it is more inclusive of Congress and the congressional interests of this particular Congress, and we're very mindful of that. And we don't find it such a challenge because generally COIL's programs have served well over time. And we keep in mind that there are certain things that are more important than others, and we try to accomplish that and accommodate that whenever we can.
Thank you. Mr. Crane, in your testimony, you briefly mentioned your responsibilities regarding training and education of the congressional community. Can you share with us a little more about the types of training you offer and the increasing demand that you are seeing?
Certainly, we have a very extensive training, education, and outreach program. Training and education is really at the heart of what we do because we believe that an educated and trained workforce is far less likely to be one where they're troubled by unlawful discrimination or other unlawful employment practices. The CAA requires that we maintain this program of training education. It is available nationwide, which is consistent with the mandate in the statute that we offer services to the district offices that are comparable to those available to legislative branch employees on Capitol Hill. Our program includes educational videos, video tutorials, in-person training, newsletters, fast facts on occupational safety and health matters, downloadable brochures. Our Office of General Counsel conducts brown bags to assist legal practitioners who have cases before our office. We offer training on public access and offer assistance in that department. We also conduct labor management forums for practitioners in that area and OSH presentations, most recently a Safety Matters talk on internal workplace safety assessments.
All right, well, thank you. And my time has expired, and I now recognize Ranking Member Espaillat for his questions for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Crane, can you give us an update on the Workplace Rights Center, what you've done to modernize and increase the efficiency of services offered by your office, particularly given the environment of cuts? What have you done to improve the efficiency of services?
Certainly. We've added several systems that increase our efficiency, not just on the Hill, but in accordance with the CA's mandate that we provide the same levels of service nationwide. As mandated by the Reform Act, we now have a secure online platform for filing claims to adjudicate under the Congressional Accountability Act. We now have a secure video conferencing system so that we can conduct virtual hearings in our ADR process. And we're finding that in the majority of cases, practitioners and claimants prefer virtual hearings to in-person hearings, but both options are available. Our training and education modules can be delivered virtually or in person. And we have also added the capacity to conduct secret ballot union representation elections virtually, so that provides employees the ability to vote regardless of their location.
Thank you. Dr. Pugh, besides moving to the Library of Congress, right, how have significant federal workforce cuts impacted your organization's ability to connect with young people and the fellowships? I mean, is there a bottom line? Have you decreased the fellowships? Have they increased? Are they the same? What's the status of the service, the number of young people that you service?
So the young people, it's not really affected because the Congressional Interns Program is the only one that will really deal specifically with young people, and we continue to recruit the same amount of students.
What about the fellowships?
So with the fellowships, it's still, we don't select a fellows class every year. It's every new Congress, but it's still between 30 and 34. So we have continued the same number. And that obviously contributes to the cost savings too, though, because that number has not increased, and it's been that way for a number of years now. But I mean, again, if Congress would like that number to ever increase too, though, obviously more funding would be required for that.
Okay. Okay, with COIL, right? I know that you're asking for a 20% increase. And how have the cuts across the board in government in general impacted COIL's mission and goals and objectives?
Well, we haven't seen any immediate outcomes from that, but I expect that grantees around the country are going to get concerned that they're not going to be able to apply for grants if we don't have the capacity to provide them with one. And giving grants is the primary purpose of the agency, which is to support civil society, rule of law, accountable governance, and transparency. So far, COIL has managed to stay in a close contact with the large number of grantees that we work with, the small clubs around the country, and they keep us apprised of situations that require more attention from us, and we do our best to answer their concerns about that.
Mr. Chairman, these are relatively like three smaller agencies, and I think that they have a pretty good hands-on approach to how they administer them. But I think that overall, as these cuts begin to take place and hit the ground, it is particularly the small agencies that could be, hit the hardest and devastated by the cuts because you have less to work with. Mm-hmm. And so I encourage us to continue to be watchful of your operations and to ensure that they continue to move forward and that they get the proper funding, including the increases that are almost mandated every year because of the cost of living. We know how everything has increased dramatically. But thank you for the work that you do. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Espaillat. Now I recognize Ms. Malloy for her 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate all of you being here to testify. I really appreciate what each of you said about how careful you're being with your budgets and stretching them, making them go farther. Dr. Pugh, my staff tells me you have a tactical advantage in that one of the women sitting up here is a fellow, and I don't remember doing a fellowship, so I think it must be Lori Rowley. Which makes me want to ask you this question. Can you tell us a success story of one of your fellows who's come through your program and then helps us do a better job. You can exempt Lori since she's up here and it'll embarrass her. Anybody else who's been successful, since you are a small agency and I think a lot of people are unaware of what you do.
Okay, one success story that comes to mind is with the 118th Stennis Fellows class. We had one Democrat and one Republican working together because that's one of the things that the program does, and they work together to work with their bosses to introduce legislation that was actually passed, and that's one of the highlights of the program, and that doesn't happen that often, but it's remarkable when it does. But for the members that are not as familiar with the program, by law, we have everything we do, it has to be bipartisan. We have Democrats and Republicans. We have House and Senate members from personal office and committee staff. So whenever we take them out, say to a university or something, and they're engaging with students and all too, though, they really see Congress at its best because you guys know that you have amazing employees and the staffers on the Hill, they're just truly amazing. They do remarkable work. But that's the best story to me. And sometimes the students can't even tell based on the questions, how they respond to the question, who's in what party. And I think that just speaks of the quality of the staff that is attracted to the Stennis Fellows program.
Thank you. So just to be clear, the legislation they passed did make people's lives better.
Most definitely.
Okay, thanks. Also, as a former staffer, I always appreciate it when people brag on the staff, so thank you for that. I had other questions, but I like the way that turned out. Mr. Crane, I'm going to give you the same chance. Can you tell us anything that, a success story you have that makes what we do easier or makes life better for people on the Hill?
Certainly. We've had successes in virtually every sub-program that we operate on a day-to-day basis. Our training and education, we've significantly updated our CAA training videos, which are available on our website and which explain in plain English what employee rights are under those various laws. We've launched an in-house learning management system that allows us to produce additional training and education materials that are tailored to the needs of the legislative branch. Our Office of General Counsel worked with other instrumentalities in the legislative branch on issues and presented practitioners 9 different presentations concerning the laws under the CAA, and also worked with the instrumentalities to raise awareness of accessibility barriers faced by individuals with disabilities, particularly during security screenings at the entrances to the buildings. Our board of directors submitted a report for consideration by the 119th Congress concerning changes to the CAA that if enacted would further the CAA's goal of maintaining parity between the legislative branch and the executive branch in the private sector. Many more, but those are the highlights. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sargis, I appreciated what you said about being careful and making sure that you're nonpartisan in your mission. I've got 40-something seconds left. Do you want to share a success story that you have?
Thank you for the question. It's a great question.
Thank you.
COIL has had excellent experience with identifying who the future leaders are that would be of interest and very good for the program. We began a program in Poland in the summer of 2022, and after a 2-year period, those delegates, there were some 50-plus delegates, 3 of whom became members of parliament in their next election. So the fact that we can identify such a very, very high-level cohort who has the ability to advance that quickly is a point that we're very proud of. We also...
Sorry, I'm out of time.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I don't want the chairman to think I'm irresponsible with my time like I was last time, so I'm going to yield back.
Okay.
I appreciate that, Ms. Malloy. Now I recognize Mr. Moore for his 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate y'all being here. Ms. Sargis, could I ask so the makeup of this exchange program, what's the largest share of foreign nationals on that side that come over here? Is it a specific region of the world? What is that?
In the past couple of years, it has been Ukraine, followed by Georgia.
Is there a specific reason why it's Ukraine and Georgia?
No, however, a couple of years ago, we were instructed to enhance or build up our Ukraine program. It had been smaller. So the opportunity came up after 2022 when we suspended our Russia program indefinitely. So we were able to accommodate that enhancement. So that works well. We also were able to partner with the VA, and it is probably a flagship program of ours that the VA works with veterans from Ukraine and provides programming for them in one of the 5 polytrauma centers that the VA has in this country, where our medical specialists are getting the opportunity to get very much the latest in battlefield injuries. And they are learning a whole lot from the Ukraine veterans who are able to come over here. And because of our relationship with Ukraine over the years, and so many of our alumni, some 5,000 alumni, many of them are members of parliament or even in the ministries by now, we're able to get permission to bring those people over here. It's very hard for Ukrainian soldiers to come over, but we're able to bring them over for our 10-day program. We also had women veterans from Ukraine who went to West Virginia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you said this. So are they are these elected officials when they're coming over here? Or generally they're not, and then typically they'll go on to become elected officials.
Most of them are not elected officials, but our parliamentary program grows each year. So we look for the elected official, and we work with the parliaments of these countries, also parliamentary staff, which are a very interesting cohort to bring over.
Okay, so most of them then not being MPs or anything like that, they're...
Not when they start, but sometimes our parliamentary program, well, our parliamentary program is for MPs. Ukraine's parliamentary numbers, we've actually reached quite a few, but most of them are having a difficult time coming and traveling on the 10-day program. So we do our best bringing them over and getting them congressional meetings and accessible to the institutions and the officials they need to meet. But there are challenges with that, of course.
Are there other European countries that participate in this?
Yes, we work with Romania, we work with Hungary, Romania, Poland, the Balkans, the Baltic states. Parliamentary members from most of those countries have come over here. Our newest program is in the Indo-Pacific, where it's interesting for us to be working with parliaments of the countries of the Indo-Pacific. They're rather small, so one of our delegations represents 10% of their parliament. So we're able to make very deep inroads into that cohort in just a few delegations.
And then, are you familiar with the Transatlantic Legislators Dialogue that takes place? The TLD has been around for a long time. Do you feel that that might be duplicative since they're meeting twice a year? Folks from the European Parliament, and then there's the NATO Parliamentary Assembly as well that has MPs from the NATO nations meeting with our congressional delegation multiple times a year. Does that seem a little bit duplicative?
I don't have a very deep knowledge of the programs you're talking about, but I believe the difference is the COIL programs are essentially in the American community by the end of it. So they do spend 3 days here. The parliament members do spend 3 days here in Washington, but the rest of their time is in communities around the country. And that is where they work with state legislatures, which are often more to scale for their own countries. So they learn about lawmaking and policy. And one of the things that we found that our parliamentarians really want to know, they want to know why they can't have a CVC. So we talk to them about that. We talk to them about CRS. We talk about calendar. They don't have congressional calendars, so they want to know how you run so they can work that into their own processes. So we introduce them to speakers from CRS, and we take them to the CVC, and they meet with committee members. That committee membership is another thing that they find very interesting. So while they do really important work here in Washington for 3 days, when they get to the state capitals, they get a different kind and a much more focused kind of program, one that really tells them what they need to know.
Yeah, I would urge you to take a look at this. So it's under Title 22. So it's over at Foreign Affairs Committee administers these. But NATO Parliamentary Assembly, they come here too. And so they come here every year, and Transatlantic Legislators Dialogue comes here every year as well. And then there was the UK-US transatlantic. There's a bunch of these things over there. So there might be some efficiencies to be found in some of this, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. But yeah, I just urge you to take a look at it. Obviously, there's a new chairman of the committee over there, but I don't know if the British-U.S. one is still in existence. It was at one point. Someone's nodding their head back there. Does it still happen? But yeah, it was. There's a number of these that are over at the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I'm speaking as former staff of the committee. So in any event, there could be some efficiencies to be found where you could try to synergize your efforts, maybe try to save us some money. But anyway, I appreciate it. Yield back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Now recognize Mr. Strong for his 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Valadeo, and I thank each of our witnesses for being here today, and to your dedicated staff for all the work you do to strengthen and support the United States Congress. Dr. Pugh, what are some of the recent Stennis Center programs or initiatives you are most proud of, and what measurable impacts have you seen from them?
Some that I am most proud of is with our congressional internship program. We have started making it a requirement for the congressional staffers that go through our program to write in our journal public service review. And one of the best parts about that is students from all over the United States who don't have the resources to come and intern on Capitol Hill, they can read about their stories. Our journal is available to everybody online at stennis.gov. And so each spring, summer, and fall cohort that go through the congressional internship programs, and it's from all of your offices who apply, they write about their experience, and they can talk about maybe working with some constituents and just life in D.C., and I think it's really encouraging for other students to read about that. So that's something that I'm pretty proud of, and it doesn't cost us any money.
Thank you. If additional funding were available, what programmatic enhancements or expansions would the center prioritize?
Just based on the interests of the Stennis Fellows Program, there's a possibility that that program can be, we can, instead of having 30 to 34, that can possibly be increased slightly. We have a few of our board members who've expressed interest in possibly growing that in the future. That would be the primary one. But one of the best parts about that is if we were to increase that in the future, that'll create more senior Stennis Fellows. And I was mentioning earlier that that's how we've been able to save so much, is because we do have so much free labor from these senior level staffers that volunteer their time to all of our programs. So we will have more senior Stennis Fellows created.
Thank you. Ms. Sargis, you mentioned the COIL program provide unfiltered insights from delegates. How do you vet participants to ensure that they are not a threat to U.S. national security?
All of our participants are nominated. There is no self-nomination, there's no online application. So we have trusted nominators in country, usually the U.S. Embassy staff, who know who that emerging leader is. And they provide a list of nominations and they do the vetting. And then, of course, they're issued a J-1 visa.
Thank you. I know Huntsville, Alabama had the opportunity to host a delegation in 2022. Are there any plans to bring future delegations back to Alabama? And could you walk us through how that process typically works?
Do we have? Yes. Okay, my Alabama guy back there. Yes, we do plan. We've done a lot of stuff in Alabama. Excuse me. The process is that in our annual grant outreach to our hosting organizations around the country, we ask who would like to do this theme or that theme, or who would like to host at what time. And because these are volunteer organizations, they really do need to see a calendar well in advance. And we give all of our current grantees an opportunity to choose next year's batch.
Thank you. What specific programming would Cole be forced to cut without this increase?
We would probably have to minimize somewhat our Indo-Pacific parliamentary program, even though we give that a very high level of priority, but it is the costliest.
Thank you. Now turning to Mr. Crane, your board recently submitted recommendations for the 119th Congress. What are the most urgent legislative or policy changes you believe Congress should consider?
Thank you. The report makes several recommendations to Congress to maintain parity with protections in the executive branch and the private sector. One of those is especially important, and that is to require legislative branch offices to maintain records of workplace illnesses and injuries. As is required in the private sector and as is required in the executive branch. That way our OSHA investigators have materials that they can consult when investigating accidents and workplace injuries. In addition, there is a very straightforward change that Congress could make to provide comparable nursing protections to legislative branch employees. Congress recently passed an act called the Pump Act for Working Mothers, and that act expands protections for nursing employees, including providing reasonable break times and a private space to pump at work. But because of what we think is a technical error, when that law was enacted, the legislative branch employees were excluded from coverage. We've notified our oversight committees and worked with them and provided them with technical language that would provide that benefit to legislative branch employees.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Chairman Valadeo, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Strong. There are no further questions. I'd like to thank Mr. Pugh, Mr. Crane, and Ms. Sargis for being here today. Members may submit any additional questions for the record, and the subcommittee stands adjourned.